Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, the Russians are not backing off from their stated goals in Ukraine, which were no NATO, disarmament, so no NATO meaning, you're a neutral country, disarmament, denazification of whatever they considered over there, right? And the recognition of the status of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, whatever it is over there, Crimea, whatever the occupied territories. Now they don't want those to be recognized as part of Ukraine, they want those to be recognized as part of Russia. So these were the main four reasons why this guy said we have to intervene there. We had our national interests, our security was threatened, these guys did not want to accommodate a bit, nothing, therefore we had to take action. So this is the Russian story. Now we are in this war for what? A year and 3 months, 4 months, and the Russians continue their operation and continue to state that they will eventually denazify, as they say it, Ukraine. So we have here, I think this is the chief of the intelligence of the Russian Federation, like would be Budanov, I'm guessing, and Ukraine. So we have here Nikolai Patrushev, and he says that Russia seeking to replace, and I'm quoting, Nazi regime in Ukraine, security chief. So this guy was a friend of Putin. I think he was a KGB agent as well. The country must be made neutral, Nikolai Patrushev believes. I think that's wrong. It's not believes. But anyway, there is no war between the peoples of Russia and Ukraine. The secretary of the Russian Security Council, Nikolai Patrushev, has insisted. The official claimed that the only, and I'm quoting, outright aggression is coming from the US, which he accused of waging an undeclared war against Russia by using Ukraine. During a meeting on Wednesday with his Belarusian counterpart, Alexander Wolfovich, Patrushev stated that, and I'm quoting, Kiev's Nazi regime, end quote, which he claimed was invented by Washington and London, and I'm quoting, must be replaced, end quote, must be replaced. He also said Ukraine must be made into a neutral state, alleging that the current crisis is not beneficial to anyone except Washington. The security official declared that the US had already, and I'm quoting, brought the whole of Europe to its knees. That's correct. I think that's 100% certain, but I don't think the whole, because there are countries that are still playing independent, which is, for instance, Hungary. Seeking only to maximize benefits for and Serbia. Seeking only to maximize benefits for the American economy by weakening the EU, which could have become one of the centers of multipolar world. He also claimed that the US does not want to see a powerful Russia and is seeking to either dismember it or liquidate it in, quoting, order to have complete reign over the Eurasian territory and pump our resources, end quote. To solve this problem, Patrushev argued that Washington and London have been using the capabilities of NATO and the EU, Ukrainian neo-Nazis and NGOs, and the government in Kiev. The official alleged that the West had similar plans for Belarus, especially after they unsuccessfully tried to carry out a color revolution in 2020 and failed to install a puppet government in Minsk. I remember that one too. Patrushev insisted that Belarus was Russia's closest ally and strategic partner, and that it was vital for the two countries to deepen their defense cooperation and jointly resist external sanctions and attempts to interfere in internal affairs. Last week, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko stated that Minsk and Moscow, I'm quoting, only mistake was failing to resolve the Ukrainian crisis much earlier. He suggested that the two countries took too long trying to find a diplomatic solution and should have acted even before the 2014 Maidan coup in Kiev, which ousted Ukraine's democratically elected president Viktor Yanukovych. Lukashenko claimed that hostilities were bound to break out sooner or later, and Moscow should have launched its military operation back in 2015, when Ukraine, and I'm quoting, had neither an army nor resolve. Well, that's what the Russians also said about intervening earlier and all that, but it's all done. Too late to talk about it, but you can learn from your mistakes. Moldova is next, according to the Russians, stating that the Americans are doing an Ukraine part 2, the second Ukraine plan over there, which the Russians say that they will probably do the same thing as they did in Ukraine, be the unprovoked aggressors. So this article obviously, states that Russia will not bow down, back off, however we want to call it, and is going to continue to, try to achieve its goals. Now, it's going to take longer. Again, Patrushev said in another interview, I think it was actually the same interview, but it was on a different date, stated that actually the truce between Russia and Ukraine from March 2022, last year, in Istanbul, would have occurred and be achieved between the two countries, but he said that the US opposed that and intervened and banned the Ukrainians to do any more meetings with the Russians in order to discuss any peace plans or truce or anything like that. I mean, you remember that time when Boris Johnson landed in Kiev. The next day, the Ukrainian delegation came back from Istanbul with some offers. That was, I think, the fifth meeting between the delegations. The Russians, they met in Belarus as well, and so on. And they were working on a truce. And the guy said, what are you talking about? Go back over there, clean up your room, and go to bed, basically. So it doesn't mean that Patrushev, is a good guy or not, but at least in any quarrel, in any argument, any fight, verbal fight or physical fight, when you stop things, that's the first thing you do. You stop the aggression, start the problem, say, okay, stop, let's talk. But it's not the willingness to do that. Why? Because that should have been done and was refused in 2021 in December, if you remember that one, and then again in January, and then in February, when the Russians said, these are our concerns, let's discuss them. USA and NATO and the Europeans said, we don't want to talk to you. Who do you think you are? You're not our equal, which I'm talking about United States. Even the Western countries thought that they are somehow, you're not our equal. Mind your own business. We do whatever we want. We don't care about your security concerns and BS. And if you have them, what are you going to do about it? We do whatever we want. Whether you're going to invade Ukraine, go ahead. But it was unprovoked whatsoever. So you got to vouch for that. So we'll see if they say that the regime must be changed. What do they plan? Blow them up little by little, make the Americans take them out? I'm not talking about killing them, but removing them. I think that's going to be the end of it. It's going to be either an eternal scuffle in Ukraine, or the Americans will tell the Ukrainians, okay, not the Ukrainians, but they will say, okay, that's it, that's done. Let's pick up our losses and let's talk. I think that's what's going to happen. Unless they destroy, as I said, 300 Russians from the leadership of the Russian Federation overnight and replaced with their weasels that identify as this and that, and take over Russia, as they almost did under Yeltsin. But Yeltsin, it seems like, as he was, I don't know if he was maneuvered by the Russian security forces, KGB, whatever you want to call it, and he was told, you gotta do this. If you don't do this, we're going to send you. You're gonna have a soft landing somewhere, like Delano Roosevelt, Franklin. He had, remember? He had a soft landing. He just had a little, mini stroke that killed him. Probably the same thing would have happened with what's his name, an alcohol overdose or something, coma, induced. So anyway, here is, my friends, the Russians are not slowing down, and you can say, well, they're not succeeding over there. Well, sometimes the results, you see them in time, which is right now probably they erode the Western willingness and they try to create the war fatigue. You know, that the Westerners will say, wait a minute, how long? No, well, this is not going to be a forever war, continuous war like George Orwell's 1984. Remember that, continuous war, perpetual war. But maybe for a while we'll see who's going to replace these guys, because they all die. We all die at one point, right? So what's the second echelon? What are gonna be the policies of the second echelon? We're gonna continue. I'm talking about the Russians, I'm talking about the Americans. The rest are just weasels. The rest are just following orders. The guys in Ukraine, the guys in Europe. It's about the United States, Russia, China. These are the guys, not Japan, South Korea, and these guys can be made to shut up in an instance by the Americans with no problem. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.